Hello.
Hello.
My name is Darren again. I'm going to be interviewing you for our living history project. And if you would please say your name and how old you are this year, please.
Uh, my name is Ken Dreyer, and I'm 86. I'll be 87 in January.
Thank you. Um, I'm going to be asking you today about your service in Korea in the 1950s. Now, how old were you when you were enlisted, or let me ask you, were you enlisted or did you volunteer to be in the army?
Well, I was drafted.
Okay. How old were you when you were drafted into the military?
Uh, I was 20.
20. And you said you had just married Mrs.
We had been married 5 months when I had to leave.
Okay.
I was not real anxious to leave.
Yeah. What division or specialization were you drafted into?
I was just drafted into the Army,
Sarah?
and I took regular basic training and then advanced infantry training.
What was it like being there? And actually, where were you stationed in Korea?
In Korea, I was mostly from the central part of the line to slightly to the west. Like we were in the Kumwa Valley initially, and later we were over closer to Chorwan. And then I spent 2 months down on the island of Koji off the south coast. Our regiment, the rifle companies were guarding prisoners of war there on Koji. And so I was on that island for a couple of months.
Thank you. Guarding prisoners of war. How long were you there?
In Korea,
Yeah.
or I got in the country in the spring of 1952, and I left in the summer of 53.
Did you ever see combat?
I didn't see combat per se. I was in an infantry regiment, but I was in a service company. So most of the time I was a few miles behind the front line. And even though I got a combat infantryman's badge for being under fire a few times, I was not in hard combat like classic infantry.
Okay.
We got some artillery fire on a couple of occasions, but no small arms fire.
About artillery fire, remember what was your not mental state, your emotional state when you first came under fire, like the first time you got.
It got my attention. I was frightened, very frightened.
Okay. What were the living conditions for the troops that were stationed there, at least for your regiment?
The first several months I was there, we lived in bunkers, holes dug in the ground and then logs and sandbags over the top.
Mm-hmm.
And so we lived in bunkers for the first several months. And then I guess we went back into reserve one time, and we lived in the squad tents. Those big tents that held about 16 cots. So we lived above ground, but just in tents.
Like the popular show MASH?
Yeah, so kind of tents, yeah, those same kind of tents.
Okay. What were the supplies available to your regiment and for the other troops, like military supplies, weapons, medical crates?
Well, we each had our own individual sidearm. Like I carried an M1 rifle for the first several months I was over there. and we had to keep them with us all the time, even when we ate and everything.
Okay.
That was really the only weapon I was responsible for.
Did you see any weapons, other weapons like grease guns?
Yes,
Those
occasionally you come across somebody who had a grease gun, or I worked in a motor pool, and a few of our trucks had ring mounts over the passenger seat, and they had a 50 caliber machine gun mounted on that ring mount.
Wow.
So we'd see a few of those.
Okay. What about food? Because I've heard stories of. There was one story where they sent in Tootsie Rolls sometimes, or some other candies, or provisions.
I don't remember that. They may have. Generally, the food was pretty good. I was always amazed how the cooks, under very crude conditions, could come up with hot meals most of the time.
Yeah.
And sometimes we maybe would just move, and they'd set up their kitchen and have some stuff hot at least.
Oh.
And we'd complain about stuff because you get tired of anything.
Yeah.
But we were fed pretty well. Once in a while, if we were moving or something, we'd have to eat out of sea rations out of cans. But I thought by and large the cooks did a good job.
Okay. What were some of your brothers in arms' opinions on the war? Like, some either drafted or volunteered?
Well, most of them just didn't want to be there. A few of the regular Army guys, the career guys, I don't know whether they welcomed it or not, so they could get some advancement or get some more recognition.
Mm-hmm.
But most of us, especially draftees, were, wanting to get it over.
Okay. What was it like at home before you were drafted? What was the public opinion of the war?
I don't remember any surveys, Jane might, but I think generally people supported it because those of us who were kids and remembered during World War II how there was such a patriotic fervor, and I can remember some people in my community where I grew up, a few people kind of worked around so they didn't have to go in the military.
Yeah.
They'd get deferments for some reason or other. And people generally held that against them for years, kind of looked down on them. I don't think there was quite that fervor during the Korean War, because I know an awful lot of people, went on to college, and that delayed their being drafted till after they got out of college.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't think that option existed much during World War II.
Mm-hmm. What was your opinion, or Mrs. Dreyer's opinion on the war itself, or just any of your other family members?
Well, I guess I felt like it was my duty to go, and I did not want to go out there and fight. I didn't want to get killed. But I felt like I should go. So when I was drafted, we didn't. There's probably ways we could have done a little more farming or something. I might have been able to got deferred for a while, but we didn't pursue that. So went ahead and took my turn. We felt that the communists were such a threat around so many places in the world that we should resist it somewhere. Not that I had a long ambition to go defend South Korea. I didn't know where it was, so I don't know where I started. But after being over there and seeing what the war did to that country, I was just so glad that it wasn't in our cities.
Um, what was one of the most memorable parts of your time being there? Like something that you would remember to this day?
Well, I remember the few times we got we got shelling. And of course, I was delighted when I got enough points to rotate to come home. It was kind of anticlimactic because a day or so after I got enough points to leave the company to get on a truck to ride back to wait for the boat in Incheon, they signed the truce. And I was supposed to have left a few days earlier, but they had a big fight on that pork chop outpost, and they stopped the rotation for several days. So I'd already been through the medics and got cleared to rotate home, and they stopped it for a few days. So I kind of sweat that out.
Yeah.
But it worked out.
No, that's all the questions I have for today. Thank you, sir.
Okay, you're welcome.